Hey everyone, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well. I am reporting live from Soldier Field where the 49ers dropped their season opener for the 2022 season today to the Bears, 19-10. Tough game for the 49ers. We're going to get into it a little bit. Today was a rough one for San Francisco. They were really their own worst enemy in this loss. They just could not get out of their own way. So many mistakes on their own. Sunday's loss dropped the 49ers to 2-4 in season openers under Kyle Shanahan. The two seasons they won on opening weekend culminating in a trip to either the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. The 4 seasons they lost ended up in losing records. On Sunday, the 49ers defense played lights out during the first half, holding Chicago scoreless while giving the offense the ball with terrific field position throughout. The deepest San Francisco's offense started on their first 4 possessions was their own 36. So they had excellent field position in the first beginning of this game, and they just could not capitalize. San Francisco offense responded to that great field position with a fumble down at the Bears' 12-yard line. Deebo Samuel on a run around the left side, getting hit, fumbling the ball, turning it over. Tanuafonga got the ball right back for them, though, with an interception of Justin Fields. It set the 49ers offense up on the Bears side of the field for its next possession, but it didn't get a whole lot better. After a 16-yard gain by Elijah Mitchell to open the possession, Trey Lance had Tyler Kroft wide open on a wheel route down the left sideline. Could not hit him, missed it. 2 plays later, he'd get sacked on 3rd down as the offense again came away with no points. The 49ers mistakes carried on into the second half. On the first possession of that half, the 49ers moved the ball all the way down to the Chicago 4-yard line where Trey Lance dropped back. He had Ross Dwelly open on the left side for a touchdown, didn't pull the trigger, pulled it back, and instead he got sacked. And that loss there led to a field goal. So instead of San Francisco having a 24-0 lead, or what could have been at least a 24-0 lead at that point, they held on to a slim 10-point margin. From that point on, the mistakes started coming from the defensive side. On the ensuing possession, we saw Tayshaun Gibson made a near perfect break on the ball to get in front of the Bears wide receiver, but he couldn't hold on to it for the interception. And then just a couple of plays later, Chicago quarterback Justin Fields broke free from a sack to find Dante Pettis alone on the right side for a 51-yard touchdown. Once the Bears got on the board, the wheels completely fell off for the 49ers. On the final 3 possessions of the game, San Francisco's offense was able to muster only 53 yards on 22 plays, including a Trey Lance interception that gave Chicago the ball on San Francisco's 21-yard line, leading to the final score of the game to put it out of reach at 19-10. Chicago went on to put the ball in the end zone for the 3rd time. That was it. Just a really rough performance for the 49ers overall. Leading up to the game and my 5 burning questions, I mentioned that I felt like this game was going to be a lot closer than most people were talking about. It just everything you go through Trey Lance's history, and I know it's not a long history, but in his 2 starts, in Trey Lance's 2 starts, the 49ers offense had scored 10 points against Arizona, 10 points against Houston in the second start through the first 3 quarters before scoring 13 in the 4th quarter of that game. Today, 10 points. So there's something going on there when it comes to Trey Lance and the offense, and Trey Lance was part of the problem. The miss to Tyler Kroft, you can't miss that throw. It's wide open. We heard a lot about it. If you go to last season in the game against Tennessee, wide open, Kyle Juszczyk down the right sideline, the ball gets overthrown, and that's all we heard about for the next week, 2 weeks, was about that overthrow. Actually, in reality, we've heard about the miss to Kyle Juszczyk, and we've seen the video of it brought up repeatedly over the offseason. First game of the year, Trey Lance drops back the pass. He has it, misses the throw, and you can't have that kind of stuff. And he didn't play bad. He wasn't bad overall. The first half, he was actually quite good. He was 6 of 10 for 70 yards. It was the second half where things kind of fell apart for him, and some of that was even more, I think, because of the rain started to come late. And he's never been in this position. You go back to his time in North Dakota State, Trey Lance never had to come back from in the 4th quarter, rarely had to play in the 4th quarter at all, any kind of meaningful minutes late in the games. So we saw that today, and we saw how that turned out. It was a struggle for him. He's going to have to learn how to play a full 4 quarters of football in the NFL, something that he didn't have to do during his time at NDSU. So it was a rough one for Trey Lance, but it wasn't Trey Lance's. This game was not all on Trey Lance. He had his issues. But it was also, the Deebo Samuel fumble. It was, it was a missed opportunity on interception by Tayshaun Gibson on the left side that he should have been able to pick up. So there was a number of things that led to this performance from the 49ers. It wasn't just Trey Lance, but I want to say this. To Trey Lance's credit, there are a lot of people who are going to make excuses for Trey Lance and the way in the reason they lost the game. There's going to be a lot of excuses made about Lance's performance in particular. And I got to give him a ton of credit because he stood up at the podium and he owned everything that happened today. Everything that he did that was a mistake, he owned it. And you got to give him credit for that. And I give him tons of credit for it. That's what leaders do, and he needs to improve. It wasn't all bad for Lance. He made some really nice throws. He had the drive that ended with the Deebo Samuel fumble. He ripped in a really nice ball to Brandon Ayuk on an over route from the right to the left. It was beautiful, really nice ball. The same thing a little bit later on. There was a play where it was right to left, and he put it right over the top of the Bears defender's head. He couldn't throw that ball any better. So there was definitely some high moments for Lance, but there were also some negatives, and that's the thing. And again, I don't know how to say it other than there's just an inconsistency or a rhythm that is missing with the 49ers offense when Trey Lance plays. They ran the heck out of the ball today. They gained 4.8 yards per carry, which was higher than they did at any point, than their average last year in games that Trey Lance didn't play in. It was a little bit lower than the games that he did, but 4.8 yards per carry, it was a pretty good number there. You just got to put points on the board when you get it down there. And when the wide receivers are open, you need to hit them. He missed them twice. That's the difference in the game. That's how small the margin for error is in the NFL, is a miss to Tyler Kroft on the wide open play, and a fumble by Deebo Samuel down by the goal line. And remember, and here's the other piece on the Deebo Samuel fumble. We saw this last year in the beginning of the season. Remember when the 49ers played against the Indianapolis Colts in the rain at Levi Stadium? Late in the first half, the 49ers are kind of nursing the lead. Jimmy Garoppolo hits him over the middle. Samuel catches the ball. He gets hit and he fumbles the ball. Indianapolis goes on to score, and the next thing you know, and it gives them the lead 13-12, and they never relinquished it. So we've seen the mistakes that we saw today from the 49ers and from Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel and the DBs and the penalties. Everything that we saw today wasn't anything that we haven't seen from the 49ers even last year. And the 49ers have changed their quarterback, but they are not a different team than they were last year. Their quarterback is hitting. There wasn't a throw today that Trey Lance hit that the 49ers didn't hit last year. Jimmy Garoppolo could throw over routes to guys that were open often. Jimmy Garoppolo hit guys on throws similar to the one on the deep one. Now, the one thing that I will say, I shouldn't have said that. If I reel that back just a little bit, I will say this. The deep ball that Trey Lance threw to Juwan Jennings, that's a throw that maybe Jimmy Garoppolo makes, but that's one of the things that's different about Trey Lance. The other thing that's big about Trey Lance, and part of the reason outside of some of the throws and his ability to make throws down the field that you bring him in, 3rd and 13, and he drops back, and I think they might have run it was either a called draw, or he just decided he got chased out of the pocket. Either way, he uses his legs and gets a first down for 13 yards. That's something that's different with Trey Lance that you didn't have with Jimmy Garoppolo. And there's a lot of, and again, I'm not pinning this loss on Trey Lance. The offense as a whole, Trey Lance, Deebo Samuel, some penalties and those types of things cost the 49ers points in the game. They should have been up, like I said, it should have been 24-0 at one point. And the fact that it ended up 19-10 shouldn't even have been there. The mistakes that were made by the defense shouldn't have mattered, because the offense was in the position to get it done. Now, another thing on this game and this loss, Kyle Shanahan against Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus, the new head coach here of Chicago. He's faced him now 3 times during his time here in San Francisco. 2017, Kyle Shanahan's offense put up 10 points against Matt Eberflus's Dallas Cowboy team. Last season, Kyle Shanahan's 49ers put up 18 points against Matt Eberflus's Indianapolis Colts defense. Today, 10 points against his defense here in Chicago. So there's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of similarities, like I said, between last year and years past. A lot of things translating through, a lot of things like that. And so it was a rough day for the 49ers. If you want to find a positive really quick before I keep moving on, one positive to this is as I'm walking out of the press box right now, I look up and I see that the Arizona Cardinals are getting blown out. So depending on what happens tomorrow night, if Seattle loses, the 49ers will be tied with everybody else in the NFC West at 0-1. The bad news on that, the 49ers could have been a game up on everybody if they'd just done what they should have been able to do in a game here against Chicago, against a team that they dominated for the first 2 quarters of the game. Really, the first 2 quarters plus the beginning of the second quarter with their offensive drive. Their defense fell apart a little bit after that. So that's kind of the backup. Let's get into the answers to the 5 new questions that we talked about on Friday that I wrote about. Number 1, can Trey Lance manage the game? I'm going to give him a no on that one. Lance was up and down all throughout the preseason. That translated here to week 1. Like I said earlier, Lance had a few where he ripped the ball into receivers for big gains. He had the over route, a couple of those over routes that he hit for big throws. He had the deep ball to Juwan Jennings. But you can't miss Tyler Kroft wide open like he did. That's a play. If you go back and you watch Trey Lance's film from North Dakota State, you're going to see it. Play action, roll to your right, throw it back to the tight end leaking out to the left. It's wide open. You miss it. That's one that he should be able to hit in his sleep. And the other thing here, to Lance's credit, he wasn't bad on third down. The 49ers had struggled with Trey Lance at quarterback in this last year. Today, though, they were 8 of 17. They were able to convert 8 of 17 times on third down. That's a positive. But also, again, on the negative, Lance finishing 13 of 28 for 164 yards. He also ran the ball 13 times for 54. With that 13 of 28, that goes right along with what he did throughout training camp, the preseason, and last year. Last year, he was 57%. Throwing the ball during training camp this year is right around that 57% number. Comes in today just under 50. Poor conditions in the second half late kind of helps that a little bit. He was 6 of 10 for 70 in the first half, so you see the numbers change in the second. But it was a rough day for him overall. And like I said, it was good to see him own it at the podium though afterwards. That's a positive. That's what leaders and leadership looks like. Number 2, will the 49ers defense be able to contain Justin Fields? That was a yes and no. The 49ers defense shut Fields down in the first half, limiting him to only 3 of 9 passing for 19 yards. It was a different story in the second half, and it kind of started right before halftime. The drive before halftime, the Bears didn't score any points, but you could see him starting to kind of get comfortable. You saw him start to move around. On that possession, he ran the ball, I think, for 26 yards on 4 or 5 carries. You could see him start to get comfortable moving his feet and those types of things. The first possession of the second half, you see him avoid the rush, run out to his left, and throw it back across the field. But Dante Pettis, who was left all alone, that turns into a 51-yard touchdown. The next Bears possession, Fields hits Byron Pringle for 22 yards on the first play of the game over rookie Samuel Womack. And then they finished that drive with Fields finding Equanimous St. Brown wide open in the end zone for him 18 yards out. That gives the Bears the 13-10 lead, and they'd go on to win from there. So it was just a tough one. The defense played good at times. They played bad at times. They did a good job on Fields. They didn't do a good job on Fields. Again, I go back to this one being on the offense. I feel like this one was on the offense. The offense should have had points on the board. The defense shouldn't have been even in the position that they were in. They gave the offense plenty of field position. They did so much. I know it's a full game, but the defense played much better, even with the mistakes, than the offense played in this game overall. And the offense moved the ball up and down the field. Just couldn't put the ball in the end zone. Fields actually ends up finishing his day 8 of 17, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He ran the ball 11 times for 28 yards. As far as number 3, can the 49ers defense stop the run? Absolutely, they stopped the run. They only allowed Chicago to run for 2.7 yards per carry. Think about that. They allowed 2.7 yards per carry on 37 attempts. Meanwhile, the 49ers also had 37 attempts, and they ran for 4.8 yards per carry and lost. And they lost because they didn't score when they had opportunities. Fields' ability to move around, though, also caused problems. Again, it was his ability to move around that really caused some problems. And then, the one thing about Justin Fields is he's really good at getting a couple of yards and diving down just before, sliding and diving into a slide just before he's going to get hit. It makes it really hard on defenders on those plays, and you saw that happen today. The 49ers picked up a couple of big personal foul penalties on that hurt them. So that was tough on the 49ers there. Let's see real quick. Before I go on to the next one, let's see what we have. Yeah, G. Slinger says, one radio show host said 49ers open with a bye week. Talk like that comes back to bite you. Well, talk like that from radio host, that doesn't matter. But forget about radio hosts, just radio 49er fans in general, and I think looked at this game as a for sure win. This is a game the 49ers should win. The 49ers are the better team. There's no doubt that the 49ers were the better team today. They showed it. The first time they had the ball, they drive it all the way down inside the red zone. They're at the 16. And then they fumble it. And then the next time, they have a guy wide open after a 16-yard run by Elijah Mitchell, and you miss the throw. And then you have Ross Dwelly open in the end zone, and you don't throw it to him, and you take a sack instead. Those things all come back to bite you, and that's what we saw happen today. Let's see what else we've got. All right, so question number 4. How will the new faces in the secondary hold up? The answer to that one, not good enough. Samuel Womack was beaten for 22-yard gain to open the Bears' second scoring drive. Tayshaun Gibson had an interception in his hands, couldn't hold on to it. The San Francisco secondary lost track of Dante Pettis, leading to the 51-yard touchdown. And then they also lost Equanimous St. Brown on the go-ahead touchdown from 18 yards out. They struggled, no doubt about it. There were some struggles there. Again, offense has to do their part. Defense has to do their part. The offense didn't do their part in the first half. Instead of being ahead, big, you're up 10, and the defense doesn't have any wiggle room because your offense. The way the games like this are, when you're the better team. Let me just talk about this one for a second, because this is where I really disagree with people who want to say that the 49ers defense lost this game. When you're the better team and you don't put your opponent away when you have a chance and you let them stick around, what happens is when you've let that opponent stick around and they make something positive happen, it starts to build. And we saw that today. And I can't tell you how many times my dad would tell me that, they just let them stick around, and, you make a play. And that's what happened today. The 49ers let the Bears stick around, and the Bears kicked the 49ers' ass in the fourth quarter in the second half to win the game. And that's really what happened. The 49ers kicked the ass of the Bears, couldn't put them away because they couldn't put points on the board. Chicago came out, and they did it. And that's the difference. Number 5, can the new offensive line hold up? Yeah, they struggled a little bit. Trey Lance helps them a little bit because of his mobility and his ability to get out and move around. But they weren't the problem on Sunday, considering all the talk that's been about this team this offseason, about that offensive line group. They held up pretty well. Lance was only sacked twice. Like I mentioned just a second ago, Lance helps that out a little bit because of his ability to move. And the 49ers, though, they ran for 176 yards on 37 carries. That's going to be the 49ers calling card, running the ball. There's been – I felt like Trey Lance was going to help the 49ers offense out most with the running game. Wrote that last week in one of my articles for the Press Democrat. We saw that play out today, 4.8 yards per carry. As far as my prediction, I said it was going to be 17-3. Wrote that I thought it was going to be a lot closer than people were expecting. I was not even worried about the weather when I wrote that down. I just felt like this game was going to be a lot closer just because of the ups and downs we've seen with the 49ers with Trey Lance on the field in the games last year and through training camp this year. Everything that we saw last year and we saw through training camp this year showed up in today's game. The big plays, the inability to be consistent and put the ball in the end zone. There were big plays, just too many mistakes. And if the 49ers can't find some kind of a rhythm and make plays when they're there, they are going to fall to 0-2 next week against Seattle. I haven't even seen Seattle play, and I can tell you that if the 49ers play the way they did today on offense, they're not going to win very many games because you're not going to win when you only score 10 points. Did the defense have problems? Yeah. But when you only score 10 points on offense in the NFL, you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win. So we can say all we want about the defense blowing it in the second half. The offense scored 10 points today. 10. That's how many they scored, 10. And so when you hear people telling you that it was the defense's fault, you should question it. Don't question it like they're lying to you. Just question it and ask them about the offense. When you score 10 points, you're not going to win often in the NFL. Estrada says, this is the third time I've witnessed Kyle blow a 10-point lead. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan today, his team blew a 10-point lead. My response to that is real simple. Kyle Shanahan also dialed up a play that should have been a touchdown that didn't get to the tight end. Kyle Shanahan wasn't the person who was up at the 12-yard line and fumbled the ball on the first down, on the first possession of the game. Kyle Shanahan wasn't the quarterback who didn't throw it to the open tight end in the end zone. So, yes, Kyle Shanahan needs to get better. And where he needs to get better is he needs to make sure that his players are better. So you can blame Kyle Shanahan for his offense, for his players not playing better. I guess that's valid because he is the head coach and always going to fall on his shoulders at the end of the day. But you can only do so much as a coach. You can't get out there and throw the ball and make the ball and hold on to it and catch it and block and all those kind of things. You need your players to make plays. And yes, eventually at some point, if your team continues to not do those things, you get fired. But I just don't look at this game and say it was Kyle Shanahan's fault. I look at this game and I see the quarterback didn't make the throw when the receiver was open. Your best offensive player put the ball on the ground. Your quarterback didn't hit an open receiver in the end zone later on in the second half, and your defense fell apart and wasn't able to hold on to an interception and had a couple of really stupid penalties that were tough. There were really actually tough penalties on them. So I don't put a whole lot of, you definitely got to, you put the blame on the defense for those penalties, but those were also some pretty tough plays for them right there. So, Drew and Scotia says Debo fumble and the dropped pick and flags period. I agree with that too. I think the Trey Lance miss should be included in there, but all these things, you got the Debo fumble, you got the flag, the drop pick, you get the fumbles, it's all in there. It's all there. Okay. Yeah, did Debo Samuel by himself cost the 49ers in the game? No. But that was just another one of the reasons for them being in the position that they found themselves in today. So that's it. Like I said, the 49ers are going to have to figure this thing out. We've seen them do this now. You go back and like I said, to start off with 6 seasons under Kyle Shanahan, they've won on opening week twice. Both times they've won on opening week, they got to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. They had really successful years. The other 4, when they had a day like today, they were not able to go out and finish the deal. They've ended up with losing records. So let's keep an eye on it to see how it works out. We got a long way to go. Still 16 weeks left in the season. Rough start for the 49ers though here in Chicago, and we'll be coming on down the road. So if you guys can do me a favor before you head out today, go over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Make that a favorite on your web browser, and then also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. When you do that, also hit the bell notification, and last but not least, hit the like button. The more likes the shows get, the more amplified it gets, and more people on YouTube get to see it. So I'd really appreciate that as well. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody. There's the Sunday night game coming up here pretty soon. I'll be back tomorrow with a kind of a recap show of what I feel, after I've had some time to digest the game a little bit tomorrow. We'll do that. Maybe even do a little bit of a call-in show for you guys if you guys want to do that on a Monday, because I'm going to have some extra time. Beyond that, though, have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. We'll be back with you soon. Take care, everybody.